Welcome in, y'all. Good evening, or whatever time it is for you at the time of this recording. It is more towards the evening, but whatever time it is for you, I hope it has been a good one. I'm not sure when this is going to be put up. I'm a little nervous to do this one. Uh, it may be just a little bit longer than the 20 or 30-minute mark, but not the 2 hour mark, I promise you. It is just what the title says, a walk down my mental health history. Um, and I guess I'll leave it up to the listeners to decide if I was brainwashed or if I was self aware. This one may be a little triggering, so I went ahead and threw my banner down at the bottom. I understand if you cannot stay, and I appreciate you leaving quietly. I am just going to jump right into this one because it is kind of a longer one. Um, of course, just a little context before I jump into the stories. When I close my eyes and I think about the the journey, the path leading up, I close my eyes and I literally I literally imagine like putting a location in your GPS and the path lights up. And instead, like around my path are like these landmarks lit up like moments in time throughout that path. And I think that's, kind of how I want to describe this channel. Like this was the path I was on, and these are the landmarks around that path. So I like to give a little context, as everybody knows, to kind of, see where my mind frame was and kind of help you put yourself into how I was feeling, seeing things, and all that good stuff. I think one of the hardest things people have with my story is that I was 31. I am married. I have two wonderful kids. I am a great mother. I have a supportive husband. In every aspect of just that much right there, I should have brought him home. That there is no excuse on why he is not with me. That I was going through some kind of postpartum or psychosis, and that I was taken advantage of or coerced or brainwashed in the state of mind I was in. That I should have went and talked to someone so that I could have brought my baby home. That was the response that I got when I joined a birth mom support group about 3 months after the adoption. I was just so lonely. And I thought, here's a group of people that automatically are going to support me. They're going to get me. They're going to just understand because we've all made the same decision. I shared just a tidbit of the story you all heard here. Now, as you have heard in the story, I'm not completely new to the way things are in adoption in other areas, especially when there was no such thing as open adoption. I was not unaware of the fact that horrible people are allowed to adopt children because of guidelines and words on paper. It is why I fought so hard. But that will still, yet again be another story for another time. That will be a video that I will be afraid to put out because then I know there will be people who very much disagree, and many of them were not very nice about it. And I don't know if I'm quite ready for that one yet. So for the sake of this video and my experience, I deleted the post that I made in the birth mom group and immediately left the birth mom community. And I thought I was lonely before, and let me tell you, that is when those words unique and rare came full circle. I was painfully aware of just how different I sounded. It was like playing that game where you all start out in the same line. And if you feel, think, been through, take a step, In the beginning, we all stepped together. We all made this hard decision step. We all love our child step. We all have some grief and regret step. We all wish we could have step. And then somewhere along the way, I realized I stopped stepping with them. I didn't feel the way they did. Things didn't go like that for me. Um, the way I feel now is not the same. I just had a strong sense of I was in the wrong place and I slipped out the back. Um, Not saying that their feelings and everything that they've went through is not valid, because it is, and it's so important. Um, that's just when I realized, oh wow, people are not okay with me saying I was the reason he's not here. That it did not come down to anything but me. That I just could not be self-aware in this, in that. Um, I feel like because of where I was, married, two kids already, my patience with them, my ability to split myself everywhere for everyone, my life. I felt like I was the perfect candidate for being capable of knowing. And when I thought about bringing him home, the feelings were never happy, healthy, or safe. I may have not known that at the time, but that's the only thing I can think of. In in all the videos and the posts and things that I've ever done to try to talk about this, I've never put that so bluntly before. But I feel like God is pushing me to speak it and say those words because they're so important. So I spent the next few years trying to understand, where this left me. Where did I fit in? And I have looked around. I've searched, I've lurked. I have not found another story quite like mine. And in my mind, I'm like, God, I cannot be the only person in this world that feels this way. Not that I want anybody else out there to have felt this way. It's just, then why, God, why do you want me to speak it so badly? And that's where me and the big guy are at odds. I just don't see why. I just don't see what he sees, and I feel like a monster. If you listened to my story, you would have heard towards the end that I bring up Andrea Yates. I thought I thought about her a lot more than I'm ever willing to admit. Uh, I thought about her in ways that her doctors told her to stop. I do not have anything mentally that Andrea had, but I do have a history. I thought about everything she did for her kids. She lived for her kids. I thought about how she was getting help and going to talk to people and just had this whole support system around her, and the horrific still happened. I guess in my mind, with the way I was feeling, it was too big of a risk for me. I think God was trying to show me that I was right. And I hated him for that throughout most of this. Most importantly, though, I am so thankful that my husband listened to me, seen what he's seen, thought what he thought, the things that he did see, because I very much believe that's what it came down for Andrea. I know for me, anybody could have been telling me anything, but it came down to him and I. I believe Andrea's case is not like any other headline case we've seen. Diana Downs, Darlie Router. I believe she knows very well that for whatever reason, her babies are not here because of her. And she knows right where she belongs. She has never tried to get out. And her husband has learned nothing from it. That's just my opinion. By all means, it was huge. You can go research her all day. But it wasn't until recently when sadly the news of three kids from three kids from Boston that were horrifically killed by their mother, Lindsay Clancy. When the news broke out, the very little that did come out in the beginning. I felt for her. Uh, Not only did I feel for her, I related to the things that she was first saying, and it scared me. I remember telling my husband that. I mean, this is really where I really started realizing maybe why I didn't fit in with anybody else. What those feelings that I didn't know that I was feeling meant. Uh, and I don't know. I still don't know. My husband was right along my side when we first heard about her. And he will tell you um, that, yes, I very much said these things to him. That it was not him I resented, it was everything that came along with him: feeding, bathing, diapers, crib, changing, the starting again, the something inside that did not want to do it all again. I felt that while I was still pregnant with him. Then came, then, I kind of divvy from her here, Then came she wanted a firstborn all over again stuff, and I was like, what? And then one day, me and my husband were sitting here, and we hear, like, he's sitting beside me, and we hear this together, that she said she had a touch of psychosis. And then the notes came out. Aside from her own husband going, what? She never mentioned anything. And me and my husband's our hoods both snapped to look at each other like, what? And I know these things are so complex. I just want to throw that out there. But with what we had just gone through a few years prior, my husband was just like, no, she sent that man out and she killed them kids, premeditated. I mean, even to this day, he is dead set. It was just like, from our perspective, our experience, there was no way that anyone who had gone through some real lose touch with reality, psychosis moments, just would not be describing it like that. And, for as much as I hid it, or I told myself this, or tried to, my husband was still seeing the things that he's seen and witnessed the things that he's seen. So for her own husband to be like, what? It just really got us thinking. It was just like, it's almost like she was charting from the internet, or a patient chart. I get she is a nurse. I was an STNA for 10 years. Always thought I would go back to school to be a nurse. Nah, I know I'm not saying the same. I know, but still. And I don't know. I don't chart myself. When I was going through it, it was more of a, I'm going crazy. I don't know what's going on. I did that, but it just wasn't. I wasn't using medical term. I don't know. I don't know. We just felt very off with the experience that we had just gone through. And then we found out about the searches that she did. So I don't know how I sit with her, because I do not relate to some of the things that she did put out there in the groups. All I know is, if she is a fake, it would be a huge, huge step back for people who actually did and do feel some of the things that she felt. And I feel this is an opportunity that was lost on Andrea Yates' case. Nonetheless, as much as I hate to sit here and say this to the whole YouTube world, and why I bring all this up is, I made a post in one of the Lindsay Clancy case groups. And that is the first place that I found a hint of understanding and support. And that was its own realization to come to terms with. And still, I can't sit here and say anything definitively. It's just, I think there are some conversations to be had. I also made it very clear that my feeling bad for these women can only go so far, because I broke in those 7 months. One thing is for sure, And I did the hardest thing that I hope I ever had to do. And it just makes me wonder, was I brainwashed? Or was I really just self aware? Is it possible that God did have such a bigger plan for it all? That my inner voice and my red flags led me down the right path? So, yes, that's kind of the context I wanted to set everybody on. I appreciate if anybody is still around. um, but one of the things, besides the whole bonding and kind of what we've already talked about in other videos, one of the other big things, and the first question I want to answer, and we will kind of go backwards, if you will, is why I did not go talk about it, or rather, why I should have done what I should have done and brought people home according to everybody else. They just ask, why didn't you go talk to somebody? There are two answers. The shorter one is that I felt very strongly that my inner voice, God, everything in me was like, do not go. For whatever reason that I stopped going to talk to people initially, don't let this be the time that you start. I very much feel like that if I did go, I would have brought him home, and that's the last thing that I needed to do. I think I would have been told that I do not really feel the way I feel and given something to help. I do not think that route would have worked out for me like it does so many others. I feel that with every fiber in my soul. The second answer is that I did go talk to people, as you will hear. But that all stopped in about 2010. And I don't know how much I'm going to go into this, because about 3 months after the adoption, so this happened in 2010, and flash forward to 2021, I got a knock at my door that I always knew that was going to be coming, because there was no way, for whatever that man did in that room, it was his first or last rodeo. But I did. I used to go talk to people. By this point in time, I had become very self-aware as far as my mental health. I had become aware in a way that, here's how I was feeling versus what I wanted. And that was, I was feeling like I did not want to be here, and not just not be here, but try to end it again. I had pretty severe IBSD. Back then, nobody knew what it was. I had a doctor tell me that it was all in my head. I'm a worker. Anyone will tell you. But during this, I was not able to stay out of the bathroom long enough to hold a job. I felt like a burden, dead weight. I was just low. And I knew enough to recognize that I didn't want to die. I just wanted it to end. So I took myself into one of our local hospitals here. They had a unit on one of their floors. I don't know if they still do, but they did back then. And I started out seeing one doctor, and he went on vacation or something. And then I ended up seeing a doctor who was contracted in from somewhere else. And I seen him one time and one time only. And what happened in there, I feel like he found, he knew what I went through with my grandpa, and he took full advantage of that, which I will get into what happened with grandpa here next. But I believe, and I always wondered if he already knew that information, or did I tell him and put myself in the position for him to do what he did. And the whole time that was happening and going on, I couldn't understand, because there was a camera in the room, and after, I walk out immediately, I report it. And, I asked about the camera, and it did not record, but a nurse did see something that corroborated and pretty much let everybody know that I wasn't lying. And I thank her for that because she could have not. So we reported it. I was told something was going to be done, and nothing was done. Flash forward to 2021. A knock came at my door saying, "We've been looking for you for a while." I had to restate, re-go over, give a audio deposition, and that's kind of where that is. But yeah, that ruined everything for me, because before then, I did go talk to people anytime I felt like I didn't want to be here. But I mean, initially, that's what kept me out. I don't trust going in to talk to anybody like that anymore. Especially, it's not even about them being a man or a woman at this point. I got to see the reports and the things that he said. I got to see the things that my mom said when I was little. We'll get to. I got to see a whole another side of what they can write in those reports, and it's a scary thing. So yeah. My first initial where I first realized I could, and I was exposed to being able to get help. I was in the 5th or 6th grade, and my grandpa had been touching me for a long time, and nobody knew. I felt like I wasn't wanted at home. My littlest brother, when he was born, he was pretty much given to my grandparents. There's a story and there's what I remember. But nonetheless, he was down there with my grandparents, and I felt the need to go, to help them, to be there with them, to help them, to help him. And I think that's where my first initial exposure to just what a job having a baby could be. It gives you it takes everything. Your life is pretty much essentially done in a way. It takes a lot of work, a lot of time, and when you're done, you just can't put them down like a baby doll or a Barbie and just say, "All right, I'm done." It's a responsibility. It's 24/7, and I think was my first realization of just how it's more about love. It's not just all about love. It is a lot. You have to put them first. You kind of lose yourself. And I think that was my first initial being very aware of that. But yes, and then I wasn't wanted at home. I didn't really have a motherly bond with my mom. If you listen to the last video I did, and my aunt and my grandma gave me that bond. So it's a very complex situation. I feel like in order to have all these things, I had to deal with him. One day, my grandma was a diabetic, and she was always in and out of the hospital. And the last time that I was down there, and I made the decision, I just can't go back. Before this, it was just touching, talking, but very much enough. And it wasn't always like that. I remember a time very much where I was Grandpa's everything. I was Grandpa's little girl. I went everywhere with him. And I can't honestly tell you when it started. But I do remember being it was the 5th or 6th grade, and Grandma was just getting ready to come home from the hospital, and I was cleaning the house, and I was cleaning her bedroom, and he came in, and he attacked me, full-fledged on the bed, and that had been not something he had never done before, and I just had a feeling I knew where it was going, and I'm little and he's older, but he's definitely a lot stronger than people would think. But I had a broom because I was sweeping, and I beat the hell out of him until he got off me. And I slowly stopped going. I stopped going down there, and he made my grandma and my aunt feel like it was their fault, but he knew. So that was kind of ahead, and I just didn't want to be here anymore. So I started cutting myself, just to release the pain, just everything. And I didn't say anything to anybody, Then came the hoodies and covering myself up just to hide it, everything. And I went to hand my agenda to the school nurse one day, and she just happened to see the cut on my wrist. And I remember her telling me, if you would have went a little deeper, I don't think that you would be here right now. And I just remember feeling like, damn, almost. Not quite, but I learned from that experience um, how to do it later on the right way. So then I was taken over to the counselor, and she pretty much told me, well, he's an old man. He's going to die soon. Pretty much it'd be useless to start anything now. Uh, that old man lived up until well after I graduated high school. But then when my mom found out, she didn't believe me. I just wanted attention. I was cutting myself for attention. I liked the attention, just a lot of the normal stuff that came along with mom. But then came counseling, and I went into the counseling, and I talked to them a little bit. Mom talked to them a lot. I was misdiagnosed, and I found out later that a lot of the things mom went in there and said did not help at all in making a correct diagnosis. And I can only assume it was a lot of the way she felt about me. So later on, I got re-diagnosed and everything, but that was my first initial exposure. It didn't last long, but I continued to go talk to people anytime I felt I needed to. Then years later, well, I still kept going down to my grandpa's later on when I was older. And it all came out, and people started to finally believe the things that I was telling them and realizing it wasn't their fault. And really, I just felt like he didn't have this power over me. Now, did he still make his comments, and did I still guard myself heavily around him? Yes, I did. But I was an adult. I was different. Um, but that was my first initial exposure. And then years later, after everything, just living the life I was living, I had my first heartbreak. And it wasn't so much the heartbreak as how mom reacted. I had just, I had an older sister and just other siblings. And I just got to see how, when my older sister's heart got broken, when other siblings went through stuff, how mom reacted to how they were. And then just, I'm over here, get over it. It's not that big of a deal. And like, you feel like your whole life's falling apart, you know? Uh, and I just think her being so cold was the last straw. And my best friend will tell you that she is still traumatized to this day. But I remember being on the phone with her. She called me. I don't remember the conversation. She could probably, and she does, she remembers a lot more of the conversation, but I did not tell her what I was doing. And I sort of faded off the phone. And this is just my memory. And I hung up. And the next thing I know, she is there. And I'm bleeding everywhere. She said she's never seen so much blood squirt out of somebody in their life. Sorry to be so graphic, but just so everybody gets the. And we went to tell my mom, and all she had to say was, "Oh, here we go again." And I was rushed to the hospital, and I had to get stitches um, in my wrist. I was still in high school, and I was the class clown. I was laughed. I was the comedic. I laugh and I make jokes and I make light. That's just how humor is. I don't think anybody would have thought. Um, and I'm not even sure if people know, because I think when we went back to school, we told everybody that I burnt myself. But I'm pretty sure that there are people, out there that probably figured it out. Um, but that was the first time I realized, like, I felt like God was telling me, like, you need to be here. And for a while, I could not figure out for the life of me why, what was so special about me. And I'm not that special. I'm really not. But I always felt like no matter what I went through, like God still put me in this bubble, like this safe little bubble. Like I went through stuff, but He still protected me just enough. And I never understood why. But I knew from that moment that I wanted to be here. I wanted to be here so bad. I wanted to die so bad. Like I was in love with the fact. If you could just, that's how bad I didn't want to be here anymore. Just, ooh. But now, that's how bad I wanted to live. And I couldn't explain it. I couldn't understand it. But I felt like God was telling me, you need to be here because you have a purpose. So anytime I ever felt like I didn't want to be here, anytime, I was diagnosed with major depression, manic depression. Um, and it's been a process, it's been a journey. And I feel like I have been very self aware in how I'm feeling. And I have been geared to pay very much attention to how I'm feeling. Now, no matter how bad life gets, I've never thought once of ending it. I have such a strong urge to be here to see it to the end now. And my best friend, she'll tell you, like, that right there, to see my life, she's been there through a lot, to see my life, to see where my perspective on life was, to where my perspective and where I am now. She's like, that is just, it's crazy to see. And it's awesome for her to see. So I feel like I am very in tune with my mental health and being self aware. And I think that during this time I was too. I just didn't want to listen. I didn't want to hear it. This isn't just, for a lack of, this isn't just like a dog I got and decided I didn't want anymore. It wasn't that easy. But I think that we have to have new conversations. And I don't think that things always look a certain way or fit into a certain box. And I guess, like I said, I leave that up for you guys to decide if I was brainwashed, or maybe I was just self aware. Maybe I had gone through a lot that has led me up to that point to make the right decision. Maybe God was there throughout this whole path, this whole journey, hidden in those landmine events along the way. Because when this happened, I feel like I am living in his plan. I feel like I'm living in that purpose right now. And we will see where it leads. So that is all I have for you today. If anything you take away, that maybe I just wasn't that as crazy as people think. And maybe that we need to create a path that allows people to say these things and we not shut it down automatically. But that is it. I thank anybody who is still here that listened in, and it's only 36 minutes long. See, it's not 2 hours. And the way I see it, anything that I forgot to leave out, as you will see, like these stories will kind of start to intertwine and be woven into each other. And I think that's the point of it. That's the purpose of it all, because all of this led me here. All right, that's enough rambling. I'm going to get off here. You guys have a wonderful night. I am not sure when I'm going to put this one out because I am a little nervous, but when I do, I'm so happy to see you. There are 4 videos that's kind of like really pushing out at me right now, or topics, I should say. And I'm just not sure which one will be next after this one. So I might put them in a post and kind of see, I don't know, what you guys want to hear next. I know what I want to say. So maybe I'll just leave it up to you guys and see what you guys want to hear. Thank you. And you guys have a wonderful night. I'm bad at goodbyes, so I'm just going to end it right here.